Hey everyone, welcome to the conversation. I appreciate you tuning in. My guest today is an accomplished actor, author, classically trained piano player, and one half of one of the most iconic duos in music history. So please welcome to the conversation the one and only John Ford Coley. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Well, John, it is my pleasure. I've been looking forward to this, and my God, I've got so many things I'm hoping we can touch on and talk about today, and looking forward to getting to at least most of them. But I have to admit, I thought we need to start by turning the clock back to something that happened, and I can't believe this, 50 years ago. I'd really love to see you tonight was released. I mean, who knew you'd have a hit song at 3 years old? But my question is, what is it about that song that resonates with people as much today as it did back then?
I've actually talked to a lot of the guys that I play with, like Ambrosia and a lot of the different groups that came from that time period. And we've all kind of come to the conclusion that it has to be the melodies because
Hmm.
that was something you could sing. They were very melodic. It was all about the song about that time. It wasn't about the artist. You might know the Beatles, you might know Queen, you might know, one or two groups, but by and large, you knew the song and
Hmm.
they were singable. The ones now, it's not about the song, it's about the artist,
Hmm.
and who can only sing where dogs can hear, that case, that kind of a deal. And it's not about the song at all. It's all about the artist. So when you get on YouTube and you find all these kids are going back, they can sing the songs. And the other great thing is that when you come into the concert, by and large, we just go down memory lane.
Hmm.
So you've got people that are thinking about, yeah, Bill stood me up on the doggone senior prom. I wrote on this song, yeah, yeah, and it's just fun. It really is fun.
It's now as you're saying that, I am thinking back to those days, being at those dances, as they called them back then, mixers, and definitely that was one of those, absolutely one of those songs that has some good memories and some maybe not so great ones, but you don't forget. You kind of
Well, you
remember,
got
you remember where you were, and it really does. That's a great point, John. I think that's a big part of it, and I know that. In addition to that, you and Dan also put out many more hits after that, and I want to get to that. But I really want to talk about your musical journey, even before you and Dan got together in high school. So, where did it all begin for you?
Actually, I began as a classically trained pianist. My mom and dad gave me the lessons. They saw that there was something going on in that. And so I just continued to go up. So before I got into the band with Dan, I'm playing a lot of Bach and Beethoven and concerts and things like that. 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. And it was something that I really enjoyed because it was very self-absorbed music. It's all about you.
Hmm.
You can play it as fast as you want to, as slow as you want to. And the thing that was so funny to me that I just literally ran smack dab into when I got on the band with Dan. Here I'm playing all this self-absorbed music. It's all over the keyboard. It's up and down the keyboard. Suddenly I'm playing boom dink dink boom dink dink boom dink dink boom. I got you, babe. And I'm going, okay, I'm bored. But the chicks were better.
Yeah,
So that's,
I was going to ask that.
that's the deal. I found my priority list very quickly.
Oh, yeah, I kind of figured there might be a little bit of a different demographic makeup of the audience based on the kind of music that you're
Absolutely. I
playing.
mean, I knew what blue hair was long before it became the trend. So,
Now, when did you start singing?
oh, that was when I was about 15. Dan was in a band called Playboys Five. And so they had a guitar player that quit because his girlfriend was getting jealous of all the attention that he was getting from other girls. So he
Ah.
quits, little wimp. But it was a great thing for me because the other guys in the band wanted a keyboard player. Dan wanted another guitar player. So I
Okay.
come in, I get the gig. Dan and I don't get along. And it was simply because he didn't want a keyboard player. Well, we would travel to various gigs together and we'd sing on the way, kind of warming up. The Everly Brothers, Righteous Brothers, Chad and Jeremy, people like that.
Hmm.
And so we discovered that we had kind of a blend. Dan always took the lead, I always took the harmony, and we just meld right to one another. And so then we became closer than brothers.
Hmm.
And we played all those years together. And we started off again like with Sonny and Cher and the Beach Boys, graduated up to the soul era. Excuse me, uh Otis Redding, because again we're playing covers, we're still
Yeah.
learning all this stuff and playing in the clubs, and then we went into the psychedelic era. Dan and I actually ended up playing kind of fusion jazz, which was very interesting. Dan played saxophone and sang, and then I played the keyboards and sang. And then finally we said, enough's enough. Let's go out and do this Simon and Garfunkel kind of thing. Chad and Jeremy and Peter and Gordon stuff. Form a duo, and we did. And then we just ended up in Los Angeles. Dan's brother was Jimmy Seals, so we definitely had a foot in. Seals and Crofts. We would kind of go out and do things with them. Jimmy Seals, Dan's brother, actually is the one who gave us the name England Dan and John Ford Coley. We were searching for a name. Then he introduced us to Louis Shelton, who was a big session player in town. He played for the Monkees and played on all those records. So he wanted to do us as far as artists were concerned. So he was really good friends with Herb Alpert over at A&M Records. He said, listen to them. They're a cross between the Bee Gees, the old Bee Gees, and Simon and Garfunkel.
Huh.
Herb said, well, we don't really need anything like that right now. We're not looking for that. And he goes, well, just take the tape. So the story came back that Herb he was shaving and he's listening to the tape and he wiped the shaving cream off his face. He called Louis up and said, get him out here. And that was it. We
Wow.
were on A&M Records. Before we had gone into A&M and a couple of different other record companies when we would go out and play. It was the days that you could play for the people. You go
Hmm.
right in and play for the A&R department. So they would literally look at us and go, what in the heck are you guys? Are you country, you pop, you rock, you
Yeah.
folk, you jazz? What are you? We go, yeah, pretty much. And because we played everything,
Yeah.
because we just enjoyed playing. But that's how we ended up on getting our first record deal.
And you know what's interesting, John, as you're talking about that, especially with the name, I remember I've had the pleasure of having Tony Orlando on the show several times, one of the nicest human beings on the planet. And I remember him sharing a story about this duo that was struggling with the name they were first given. It was Tom and Jerry. And they just weren't getting any traction until they became Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
Well,
name's
the name
important.
is
In fact,
everything.
they put a little bit of a twist on your last name because your last name's Collie.
Right. Well, actually, the funny thing about it, now Dan used to mimic the English accent when the Beatles came out. And if you've ever heard a Texan
Yeah.
attempt to mimic anything other than maybe an Alabama accent, it's about as close as you can get. Do a little bit of Cajun. That and then my name, when Jimmy, he was thinking of John Ford, the director. He says, we're going to drop the
Oh,
L from your name that way, because nobody could ever pronounce Collie. It's Cooley, Collie, Connolly, everything but Collie. So he said, make it Coley like Red Foley, and then add the John Ford because it just flowed. And well, now immediately when he said John Ford, I didn't even think of the director. That was the second thought. My first one was John Rip Ford, who was the Confederate commander at the Battle of Palmetto
ah,
Ranch, the last battle in Texas for the Southern War for Southern Independence. And so that's where I went. And I thought, I like this, but I tell you, it was confusing for me because people would call me during that time, like solicitors and stuff, and they go, Mr. Coley, and I'd go, no, Coley, no, Coley, you're right. It was really kind of a dance for me.
no, I can see that, and it's definitely. because a lot of times when people's names are changed, it's something completely different. So I can see where
Yes.
it's going to be a little trickier because it's similar but different, but I can absolutely see where that would happen. Now, during the years that you and Dan were together, what would you say are some of your favorite memories?
I think probably the thing that I appreciated Dan the most on was Dan and I had a lot of similarities. We had a lot of detractions for things. I loved horses and animals, and I was like a cowboy. Dan was a city boy,
Mm,
as city as you could be. About the closest that Dan got to be a country boy was we would go out and we would hunt water moccasins, cottonmouth water moccasins. We'd take our pistols out and go out and kill those damn things. So I hated them. Almost got bit by one once. You know what they're like. You're down in Florida, and they're aggressive. So the other thing that probably made the relationship that Dan and I had as strong as anything that I've ever seen was the fact that we were both very solution oriented. I
mm.
don't want to sit here and argue with you all day long on something stupid. Let's just kind of pretend that we've been arguing for 2 hours and I was right and I won, and then we can go eat. So Dan and I, we were both like that. It's just, no, let's get it solved. What do we need to do here? Okay, we're going to do that. You do that. I'll do that. Okay, we're good. Let's go. And it made the relationship easier than anything I think I've ever been in. Because I've been in arguments with people that go nowhere, and and then in the middle of it, see, we got it solved finally, and they go, "Yeah, but and you go, "Oh God, here we go again." So that was my biggest appreciation point with Dan.
No, that's great. And especially given the fact that, during those years, you guys are together all the time, night in, night out, whether it's in the studio, on stage, traveling. So it's great that you got along the way that you did. And I also think, John, another interesting chapter in your life is in the 80s, you started getting involved in some other things, including movies and doing some acting. So how did that all come about?
That actually was a complete fluke. Um, you remember the film Godfather?
Yeah.
And there's the guy, Mo Green, that got shot in the eye on the massage table.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was Alex Rocco, and we called him Bo. That's what he was known by. Bo was not only an accomplished actor, but he had been in the Boston mob,
Mm.
and he big guy, and he'd come up and he'd go, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing, boy? What's going on with you?" And it's like he got me into acting pretty much. His stepson was doing his first movie, so he's calling favors in from everybody. Steve Railsback, who played Charles Manson in Helter Skelter, or Joey Pantoliano, who went on to Goonies, and
Oh, yeah.
all these guys. So Catherine Mary Stewart ended up being in the film. She was in Weekend at Bernie's and Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet, things like that. And so they pulled me in as the drummer in the band because it's a rock and roll film. Timothy B. Schmidt's the bass player.
Ah,
So I end up in this and had to learn how to play drums. I mean, it was really interesting for me because I learned these songs. I'm not a drummer. I learned songs in the basement just from the top to the bottom. I could hit every lick that came in. I was on top of it. Well, we go to the film the first day that they're doing the drums, and they said, okay, we're going to start at the second chorus. It's going to be a third way, into the middle of the course. And I'm going, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. What do you mean? This, I know it from the get go to the end, and they said, I said, play it. I got to know where I'm at and what licks I'm going at. So I got a real, interesting introduction into film. But I had the best time. I ran into what's called day players. They
hmm.
got 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They come in, they do the stuff. The principals aren't even there half the time. And just working around those people in that environment was probably one of the challenging moments of my life because I'm in a completely different field. The only thing that was good for me is that I was a ham. I'm just a natural ham. Dan called me a couple of times and he's repeated it after he and I split. He's out playing. He says, John, he says, man, the hardest thing that I'm having to do out here is talk. He said, you talked all the time. You're the one that told jokes and, made light of everything. And just like we used to tell Dan that it's like, you're the funniest guy I've ever known in my life. But you step on that stage and it's like somebody puts a big roll of gaffer's tape completely around your mouth. Heck, they put a chastity belt. You can't even move. And he wouldn't say squat. And when he did, he was extremely unnatural at it. So I'm doing all of that. So I would ad lib so many of my things. One time they said they actually were doing it as a prank, and I didn't realize it was a prank. My character's name was Bond, Kenny Bond. And so they said, John, we went into one of the club of not the Viper Room, it was another one. But they said, look, I want you to do this. Here's a bar. You're going to have the barmaid come over, and in your best British accent, you're going to hit on her, and you're going to say, the name's Bond, Kenny Bond, right? And then she's going to look at you. And I went, oh, okay, fine. So she comes up, and I said, by the way, my name's John. She goes, hi, my name's Hope. Big muscles, like a bodybuilder chick. And I turned and I said, doggone it. And I looked at all of them over there and they were laughing their heads off. It's like, gotcha, gotcha. And so, we had all kinds of things going on. It was very interesting.
How would you say? Because obviously, I mean, getting that role and having to play the drums, you'd think they'd say, "Hey, why don't you be the guitarist or the keyboard player?" Would have been a lot easier, right? For
Well,
that
the
role.
thing that was hard is that you noodle a lot. I'm the piano, I'm just kind
Yeah.
of playing along guitar, you noodle. Drums, man, there ain't anything you can noodle on. You're sitting, you're loud, and I had pads on those things, so it's like, what do I do? What do I do? Timothy's over there noodling on the bass, and it was really a wonderful experience. I had the best time of my life. I ran across some of the most eccentric people. There was a young lady that had 2 days worth of work. That was it. And so she's the keyboard player in the band. She comes into the session carrying her keyboard. She's being replaced by Catherine Mary Stewart, who now is taking over the keyboard role. And this girl pitches the biggest hissy fit I've ever seen in my life. 2 days. Well, her name was Pamela Springsteen.
Ah,
Bruce's little sister.
okay.
So she and I, the first day that we met one another, we just bonded. We were like cloned at the hip. And she's, going, John, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to get out from under Bruce's shadow. I'm studying as much as I can. I'm becoming as believable as I can, taking as many classes as I can. And I'm just like being a big brother saying, hey, Pam, come on, man. It's all about networking. You're doing good. You're doing good. Just keep going. And so the next day, she comes in, she sees me, her last day, runs over to me, grabs me by the arm, and she says, John, I talked to my brother Bruce last night. He knows who you are. He said, son, he'd like to get together with you sometime. You guys can write or play or go out on the road or, do whatever you musicians do. And he told me to give you his telephone number. And I said, really? And she said, no, I was just acting, but did you believe him? It was, I love the girl to death, but it's like, now I can understand there'll never be world peace as long as there's siblings in the world. I get it. So it was just constant things like that.
My God, that is the man. That that
Oh,
is one way to
I tell
see
you the
if.
one that unnerved me. I ended up doing a film called Dream a Little Dream. Corey Feldman. I threw Corey Feldman down the stairs. I beat him up. And so I'm the boyfriend of Susan Blakely, that she
Oh,
plays the
okay.
mother in the film. Well, she insisted that I be on set when she's on screen as well, because it didn't seem right that she would be alone just dealing with this deal. So I got like 2 weeks worth of work out of that when I only had three. And so they threw a thing in. They said, John, you guys sit over here. You guys are gonna we're gonna film a makeout scene between the two of you. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna be making out with Susan Blakely.
Wow, somebody's
She's
got
a
to do
very sweet, lovely lady. But the caveat in the whole thing was that her husband was about 5 to 6 feet away during this entire time. And you talking about some little sweat going on, because
it.
it's like, holy cow, man. So I learned if you're going to cheat with somebody, make friends with the husband. That'll probably, save you in some way or something.
Oh my God, that's amazing, John. Now, I'm curious, as you're describing these different scenes and kind of those experiences, is there any comparison to when they say action to when you take the stage, to sing? Are there similarities, or do you get more of a high or a rush from either one? Or are they both about the same? Or
Well, they used to both be blood pressure raisers. The red light goes on, the blood pressure goes up.
yeah,
It doesn't do that any longer, especially with music. I played the Grand Ole Opry about a year and a half ago, first time, and I am as nervous as I have ever been in my life. This is the Grand Ole Opry. You're
yeah,
standing there in the middle of the circle
oh yeah,
where all of these people have been. My cousin was there. She sang for years, Minnie Pearl. So it's like I'm singing where my cousin was. Well, before I go out, Bill Anderson, Whispering Bill Anderson, this guy I grew up with. I loved his music. He just seemed like such a person you could sit and have a beer with,
yeah,
more or less. And so he is on before I play. I'm standing over on the side and I'm just pacing. And I don't do that because I just don't. I've been doing this too long. So he comes over and they're setting up and doing announcements and stuff. He and I are just talking. He's just as affable and as friendly as he can be. And I'm still shaking. I put one foot on that stage when they call my name. I know where I'm at. I know what I'm doing. I know what I've been put on that stage to do. And anything that had been, I can be in the biggest fight before I walk on that stage. I step up there, it's gone. There ain't
wow,
nothing but that audience. And I don't see over, in periphery. It's just very, very limited because I'm focused on this. And so I don't get nervous any longer because I know what I'm there to do. And I've done this so long that I know how to recover very quickly. If I forget a lyric, if I flub something, if I make a mistake, and you do, you play
yeah,
with passion, you're going to make mistakes. And so, no, I don't get that. Now, the only
wow,
thing with acting that's different is the fact that the delivery might be a little bit different. You
mm,
might not hit that mark that you were hoping to hit. It's like I'm about to do a film in San Antonio in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And I just finished another one for this guy. It's coming out actually. It's called Kill Trip, and it was a smaller role. But this one, I'm sitting looking at the deal. Okay, this is how this script goes, and you know what? It just doesn't feel right seeing it in my voice. This guy is just kind of an existential film anyway. It's very, very dark. And it just seems like instead of the first line being, "Are you here for the job?" Kind of like, "You here for the job?" A little bit more of a Cajun deal. So now I'm going to do this whole thing in a Cajun. So I'm going to be a little bit jittery,
mm,
making sure that I can get it's not job, it's job, and a little bit different. So
wow.
no, I don't get nervous.
Okay. No, I just, like I said, I think that, it's great when you have different avenues to use your creative skills and those abilities that obviously you have and you've honed over the years. And there's one other thing, speaking of skills and abilities, and I mentioned it right up the top in the intro, and that's author. So what inspired you to write your book, Backstage Pass?
I love stories. I'm a storyteller. When you come to see me in concert, the chances are you're going to, okay, I'm an hour and a half up there. The chances you're probably going to hear about 40 minutes worth of comedy, stories, and then the rest of it's going to be music. Uh, there are things that happen to me on a continual basis, and they said, you need to write these down. So, for example, like the very first one in the well, I tell people all the time. I mean, even when they buy the book, I say, I hear it's funny. I hadn't read it myself, but I hear it's funny. And that kind of sets it up. So when I did this story, it was because I was in California and playing with these two sisters. And afterwards, we met people because I love to meet people. I like to hear your stories. I like to hear what your experiences were to the music because I don't get to hear those. I've only got mine. And so this lady comes up, all black, corporate looking, lawyerly looking, serious, had a stern face. And she had one of the old LPs and wanted me to sign it. And so she said, took me by the hand and she said, I want you to know my fiance and I fell in love with your song, Nights Are Forever Without You. We danced to the song. He proposed to me to the song. We loved to the song. We did just about everything to that song. Not being remotely interested in what that lady's everything could possibly include, I just said, well, thank you. That woman switched in that instant and became uh, Linda Blair. I mean, literally, Satan morphed in front of me. And she got about that close to my nose, and in a voice I didn't recognize coming out of her before, she said, and then that blankety blank so and so left me, and I've hated your song ever since. And it's just like, hey man, I've been doing this. Moses was just coming down from Mount Sinai when I started doing this. It's been that long, you know. And so I just stood there and I went, cool. I mean, what could you do, you know? So I thought that's funny. That's worth the story. So then everything, I started remembering all of it. And things on a continual basis continue to happen. The stories and the funny thing, I spend most of my time laughing. I really do, because I'll go, I can't believe somebody said that or that happened. Um, so it's been really kind of a fun thing. And I'm doing the new one just because, again, there's just so many things that I think I can't let these things go. I mean, if somebody laughs, that'll be worth the price of admission right there.
Wow. Yeah. Now, John, I know the book's available on your website, and I'm going to make sure folks see your website. So you got another one in the works? Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
got another one in the work. This one's called, the first one's called Backstage Pass. This is Backstage Pass. The roadies ate the food. And I mean, it's just when I talk to people or listen to them explain things to me, I go, oh, come on, me, you got to do that. So I refer to it as my unauthorized autobiography.
Ah,
I didn't give myself permission to write it. And it's just, again, it's just a collection of stories because I love stories. I love stories. I was an English lit student in school and college, so I was reading incessantly, and there's so many things that you can learn.
hmm.
It's not books about drug, sex, and rock and roll. If you want that, you can. There's
Yeah.
thousands of them out there. This is just about ridiculous things that went on all the time. I spent, if it hadn't been like that, I don't know what I would have done.
Wow. No, that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to that and looking forward to having another conversation with you when it's about to come out or when it comes out. But in the meantime, John, I have one last question for you for our conversation today, and I'm really looking forward to your answer, especially given everything we've talked about thus far. When you look back at everything you've done, everything you've accomplished, what would you say you're most proud of?
Oh gosh. Okay. This is going to sound a little bit bizarre, but it's legendary in this industry to throw your hands up and quit.
Hmm.
You get beat down, you get beat up, you get told your craft is not up to the standards, or it's garbage, or they just don't like it, you don't quit.
Hmm.
I never quit. I realized I was very, very fortunate in the things that have occurred to me in my life because I log these things in, and they just go systematically. This is why this is why that. When I was about 18 years old, I was going to school and I didn't have a keyboard, so I wasn't practicing that much. I'd come in on Thursday nights, we'd play and we'd practice, and then we'd play on Friday and Saturday nights, sometimes Sunday. And I came in to rehearse, and I learned that me and the bass player were about to get fired because we were not progressing in the way that we needed to progress. I wasn't practicing, so
Hmm.
I'm keeping up. And I didn't like that. And the next morning, I'm driving back to school. It was the first time that it happened to me. It's happened to me two other times since that time, but they were 50 years apart, 60 years apart. I heard an audible voice, and it scared me beyond anything that I've ever been scared before. Because again, you're 18 years old. You think you're going crazy. You've got, all the things that are going on with people flipping out because they can't handle the pressure and stuff. I was okay with pressure. I didn't, freak out. But I heard the voice say, I gave you the gift, verbatim. I gave you the gift. What you do with the gift is up to you. But if you do not use the gift, I will take it from you and I will give it to someone who will. Period.
Wow.
That was it. And that scared me beyond anything that I had ever gotten. I realized this is a gift. You got the gift. You got people out there that can play you under the table. They can make you look like a fledgling neophyte, just like that. But you got the gift. Now you have to develop it. And I set out to seriously develop. I got very, very serious about music. And
Wow.
that's the greatest thing I would say that's ever happened to me. Because it gave me motivation, gave me
Yeah.
focus, what I'm going to do, you know. If I'm going to be in this industry, that's what's going to be required of me.
Well, and John, I think that's kind of two things at one. One is it's definitely something to be proud of, is that resilience and persistence and everything over the years that you've done, which has led to all that you've accomplished. But I also think it's a great message for people out there that maybe have a gift or maybe they're on the cusp of quitting, and that thought that you quit, that gift's going to go to someone else. So I think that's
Yeah.
that's powerful on many fronts, and I thank you for sharing it.
Well, the one thing that I thought was very, very interesting, there was when I came to Nashville, uh, you meet people. I like to meet people. I like to network. I'm appreciative of what other people have done. And I was hearing about a group called Little Big Town.
Hmm.
Son of a gun, we're all sitting in this little Cajun place, and I met them. They're struggling. They're trying to get their foot in the door. They've got the word around town. They're doing this. They're the next up and comer, but they're struggling. And so the next time that I heard about them was about 4 years later when they had a song called Boondocks. And I
Oh,
went, oh man, good for them. They hung in there. Well, I ran across, oh gosh, probably about 2012, something like that. I ran into Phil Sweet, one of the guitar player singers in Little Big Town at the airport. And I said, man, I really am proud of you guys. You did it. And he says, well, it probably would have happened later on anyway. And I said, no, you're missing my point.
hmm,
What I'm proud of you on is you're not doing anything different now than you were doing back then, but you didn't quit.
hmm,
And he got a very serious look in his eye. And he said, you're right.
hmm.
We didn't quit. And I went, that's what counts.
Wow.
Everybody quits. My wife at one point asked me, there's a girl She was doing something, working at something, and the lady said, "Would you have John talk to my husband, a songwriter? He's about to call it quits." And she said, "Would you do that? Would you talk to him?" And I said, "No." She said, "Why not?" I said, "He's already quit. This is not an industry where you have people bolstering you up all the time. You have to pull yourself up by the nape of your neck.
Yep.
It's you. It's you, only you. You can't depend on anybody. And if you're going to quit, if you even say you're going to quit, man, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, you're done.
You've
You're
already,
time.
yeah.
Just get on the bus and go home because we don't need people like you. We need people that are going to sit there and work it out.
Yeah.
You know. So I became very, very hard about it. I mean, I was hard on myself every time that I'd send something out and I'd get a rejection letter, put that sucker right on the wall by my desk and go, yeah, watch this. And there you go.
Wow. Yeah, it's the old expression. It's not about what happens to us, it's how we react.
Yeah.
And just keep moving forward. And obviously, you're living proof that it pays off, that the hard work and the persistence pays off. And John, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me today. I've enjoyed every minute of our conversation. I appreciate the
Thank you.
stories that you've shared. I'm already looking forward to getting together the next time and talking about even more. But I also want to make sure, folks, if you haven't gone to John's website yet, go visit his website, check out his tour dates. Like you mentioned earlier, Ambrosia. I know you're still active and doing shows with those guys and
Yeah.
some other folks as well, right?
I leave Wednesday to go back to California to play a symphony with Ambrosia. Then we come back to Nashville. We're doing another symphony. I just came back from Louisville the other night. I'm only 200 miles away, so I was playing a gig with a Little River Band.
Oh,
We play a lot with Three Dog Night.
huh.
I used to play with those guys years ago with Dan. We toured with them to Japan for about 2 weeks. Good friends with them. And so we just kind of connect up again. You'd be surprised because of the yacht rock thing, the number of people that we come in contact
Oh,
with on a monthly, weekly basis. We used to play a lot with Al Stewart. So we do Ambrosia, me, Peter Beckett from Player,
oh
maybe
yeah.
Elliot Lurie did Lurie. Lurie did Brandy, Stephen Bishop, Gary
Oh,
Wright. We used to play a lot with Gary Wright, and so it's really a pleasure to be able to get with these people because you know the difference between then and now? Egos.
ah,
Nobody has an ego. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, it's your turn, my turn. We're all family now. So
wow.
it's a good connection. I know that I can depend on these people. And we love getting together with all the original people because there's not many
Mm.
originals left,
Yeah.
and you get these bands and they're all tribute bands in essence. You might have a hired player or two, but that's why I love to say, yeah, I play by myself. So the chances of being an original member in my band were always 50-50. You can't say that. So
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And man, I can't even imagine how much fun those shows must be. And I also think you're transcending generations because I know there's younger people going to see those shows. There's more younger people that are listening to that music instead of the AI generated stuff and things like that. So I think it's great that you're keeping that music alive as well as the other folks that you mentioned too.
And there's a lot of kids that are coming to these things now. They're discovering it on YouTube. But the
Yeah,
thing that we think that's going to, excuse me, that's really drawing them, they're going down memory lane into
yeah,
the melodies. They can sing those melodies.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's something we talked about right up front. It's the melodies, it's the song, it's absolutely they're timeless and always will be. So, John, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Like I said, looking forward to the next one. I wish you all the best with the shows you have coming up, with the new book that you're working on. And I look forward to seeing you again down the road sometime soon.
That sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You got it, my friend. And folks, thank you for watching. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. We'll see you next time.